Natural disasters rewrite survival rules, but chaos is another hunting ground for ocean predators. In the wake of tsunamis, hurricanes, or flooding tides, sharks often find themselves closer to shore, disoriented but deadly. When water turns violent and debris fills the sea, humans aren't just at risk from nature, they're exposed to its oldest killers. From the tsunami surge to the snap of bone in a shark's jaws, disaster zones become feeding grounds. In these moments, survival hinges on luck, not logic, and sharks never hesitate. Port Elizabeth, South Africa, March 15, 2011. The coastal city of Port Elizabeth had witnessed its share of Indian Ocean fury over the decades. Still, nothing quite prepared the residents for what would unfold on that fateful Tuesday morning in March 2011. The city, nestled along South Africa's southeastern coastline, had been built upon centuries of maritime history. Khoisan tribes once fished these waters before Dutch settlers established their presence in the 1820s. Mandla Sibeko, a 34-year-old fisherman, had been preparing his nets near the harbor when the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. He had lived in Port Elizabeth his entire life and recognized the signs of an approaching storm. But this felt different. The water was retreating far beyond the normal low tide mark, exposing sections of the ocean floor that had remained hidden for decades. Thabo Mthembu, a 28-year-old construction worker, had been walking along the coastal road with his colleagues Sifo and Lavu when they noticed the strange behavior of the seabirds. Flocks of gulls and cormorants were flying inland in unprecedented numbers, their usual coastal patterns completely disrupted. Both men had grown up in the township areas surrounding Port Elizabeth and had developed an instinctive understanding of nature's warning signs. At approximately 9:47 a.m., the first massive wave appeared on the horizon like a dark wall stretching across the visible coastline. Mandla abandoned his fishing equipment and began running toward higher ground, shouting warnings to anyone within earshot. The wave, estimated later to have reached nearly 12 meters, struck the coastline with devastating force. The tsunami's impact was immediate and merciless. Coastal buildings crumbled under the immense pressure. Vehicles were swept away like toys, and the carefully maintained harbor infrastructure was reduced to twisted metal and concrete debris within minutes. Mandla was caught in the rushing water despite his desperate attempt to reach safety. The current pulled him away from the shore with terrifying speed. Thabo and Sifo had been closer to the water when the wave hit, and were immediately engulfed by the churning mass of seawater debris and uprooted vegetation. The force of the water was unlike anything either man had ever experienced, tossing them about like leaves in a hurricane, while they struggled to keep their heads above the surface. Nomsa Kumalo, a 31-year-old nurse visiting the coastal market, was swept into the turbulent waters with dozens of other people. She managed to grab onto a large piece of wooden debris, possibly part of a fishing boat, but the current continued to pull her further from the shore. Around her, she could hear the desperate cries of other survivors, struggling against the relentless force of the displaced ocean. Bongani Zulu, a 45-year-old taxi driver, had been parked near the waterfront when the tsunami struck. His vehicle was immediately submerged, and he found himself fighting for survival in water that seemed to have a life of its own. The debris-filled current carried him alongside the others, desperately trying to stay afloat while pulled deeper into the Indian Ocean. None of the 5 survivors could have anticipated that the massive water displacement had attracted one of the ocean's most formidable predators. A large great white shark, estimated to be approximately 4 meters long, had been hunting in deeper waters when the tsunami's powerful currents pushed it closer to shore than it would normally venture. The shark, disoriented by the sudden changes in water pressure and the abundance of unfamiliar sounds and vibrations, began investigating the commotion. Its acute senses detected the thrashing movements of the struggling humans, which triggered its predatory instincts despite the chaotic environment. Mandla was the first to encounter the shark. He felt a sudden, crushing pressure around his left arm as the great white's powerful jaws clamped down with approximately 1.8 tons of bite force. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, but the shark's confusion in the turbulent water caused it to release its grip after several seconds of thrashing. The shark then turned its attention to Thabo, striking him in the torso. The attack was brief but devastating, with the shark's serrated teeth causing severe lacerations before it moved on to its next target. In the murky, debris-filled water, the predator acted more out of confusion and territorial defense than calculated hunting behavior. Namsa, Saifo, and Bongani each suffered similar attacks, as the disoriented shark continued to bite at anything that moved in its immediate vicinity. The combination of massive blood loss, shock, and the continued struggle against the powerful currents proved fatal for all 5 individuals. Rescue helicopters arrived approximately 40 minutes after the initial impact, but by then the survivors had been swept too far from shore. Emergency responders managed to recover 4 of the 5 bodies over the following 2 days, with evidence of shark attacks visible on each victim. The Port Elizabeth tsunami shark attack became one of the most unusual and tragic maritime disasters in South African history. Marine biologists later explained that great white sharks, while typically avoiding shallow coastal areas during daylight hours, can become dangerously unpredictable when natural disasters disrupt their normal behavioral patterns. The incident was a stark reminder that nature's disasters often compound unexpectedly, creating scenarios that even experienced coastal residents could never have anticipated. Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, August 22, 2018. The Red Sea resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh had established itself as one of Egypt's premier tourist destinations by the early 21st century, drawing millions of visitors annually to its pristine coral reefs and crystal-clear waters. Located at the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula, where the Gulf of Suez meets the Gulf of Aqaba, the area had been transformed from a small Bedouin fishing village into a bustling resort city. The region's marine ecosystem, part of the larger Red Sea coral reef system, was renowned for its biodiversity, hosting over 1,000 fish and 150 species of coral. Fatima al-Rashid, a 32-year-old mother from Cairo, had arrived in Sharm el-Sheikh 3 days earlier with her 2 young children for what was supposed to be a relaxing family vacation. She worked as a primary school teacher in the capital and had saved for months to afford this trip to the Red Sea. Her children, 7-year-old Amira and 5-year-old Hassan, had never seen coral reefs before and were excited about their first real beach experience. The family had chosen to stay at a mid-range resort that offered direct beach access, avoiding the more crowded tourist areas in favor of a quieter stretch of coastline. The beach featured a gentle slope into the water, ideal for families with young children. Local fishermen had reported seeing various marine life in the area, including occasional sightings of larger predatory fish. Still, these encounters were typically far from shore and posed no threat to swimmers. On the morning of August 22nd, Fatima took her children for an early swim before the afternoon heat became unbearable. The water temperature was perfect, hovering around 28 degrees Celsius, and the sea appeared calm with minimal wave activity. She had chosen a spot roughly 30 meters from the resort's main beach area, where the water depth was manageable for her and the children. Amira and Hassan played in the shallow water, their laughter echoing across the beach as they collected colorful shells and chased small fish visible in the clear water. Fatima waded out to approximately chest-deep water, staying close enough to maintain visual contact with her children while enjoying the therapeutic warmth of the Red Sea. The attack occurred without warning signs that would have been apparent to a casual swimmer. A large tiger shark, estimated to be approximately 3.5 meters long, had been hunting in deeper waters when it detected the vibrations and electrical impulses generated by human activity near the shore. Tiger sharks, known for their opportunistic feeding behavior and willingness to investigate unfamiliar stimuli, occasionally venture into shallower waters when following potential food sources. Fatima first became aware of the shark's presence when she felt a powerful impact against her left leg. The tiger shark had approached from behind, using the sun's glare on the water surface to mask its approach. Its initial bite encompassed most of her thigh, with rows of serrated teeth penetrating deep into muscle tissue and causing immediate massive trauma. The pain was so intense that Fatima's scream was audible to beachgoers nearly 200 meters away. Several witnesses later reported that the sound was unlike anything they had ever heard, a combination of shock, terror, and physical agony that immediately alerted everyone on the beach that something catastrophic was occurring. The shark's grip was relentless, its powerful jaw muscles designed to hold struggling prey while its body thrashed from side to side. This behavior, known as a death roll, is typically employed by large predatory sharks to disorient their prey and cause maximum tissue damage. Fatima's attempts to strike the shark or push it away proved futile against the animal's size and strength. On shore, Amira and Hassan watched in complete terror as their mother disappeared beneath the water's surface. Their screams joined the growing chorus of panic from other beachgoers who had witnessed the attack. Several local fishermen who had been preparing their boats nearby immediately rushed toward the water, hoping to intervene before it was too late. Ahmed Mahmoud, a 45-year-old fishing boat captain, reached the attack site first. He dove underwater repeatedly, attempting to locate Fatima and drive away the shark using a metal boat hook. Two other fishermen, Ibrahim Hassan and Muhammad Ali, joined the rescue effort, striking the water's surface with oars and shouting to frighten the predator. Despite their valiant efforts, the fishermen could not locate Fatima after she was pulled beneath the surface. The shark had dragged her into deeper water, beyond the range of the rescue attempts. The attack lasted approximately 4 minutes from initial contact to when all activity ceased. Resort security personnel arrived within minutes, evacuating all swimmers from the water and establishing a perimeter around the attack site. Emergency medical personnel were called, but there was no victim to treat. Egyptian Coast Guard vessels began searching the area, but the depth and currents made recovery efforts extremely challenging. Fatima's body was never recovered, despite extensive search operations that continued for 5 days. The incident prompted immediate changes to beach safety protocols throughout the Sharm el-Sheikh resort area, including mandatory shark spotting training for all beach staff and additional warning systems. The tragedy left Amira and Hassan orphaned, as Fatima had been a single mother following her husband's death in a car accident 2 years earlier. Fatima's sister in Cairo took in the children, but both required extensive psychological counseling to cope with witnessing their mother's death. The attack became a stark reminder of the inherent risks in marine environments, even in areas considered safe for recreational swimming. Maputo Bay, Mozambique, June 14, 2019. The port of Maputo had served as Mozambique's primary maritime gateway since Portuguese colonial times, and its strategic location at the mouth of the Maputo River made it an essential hub for trade throughout southeastern Africa. The harbor infrastructure, modernized significantly in the early 2000s, featured extensive inlet pipe systems designed to manage ballast water discharge and maintain proper salinity levels in the port's various operational zones. While crucial for harbor operations, these underwater systems created complex current patterns that occasionally attracted marine life from the deeper waters of Maputo Bay. The Mozambican Navy maintained a regular inspection schedule for all underwater infrastructure, recognizing that the country's 500-kilometer coastline required constant monitoring to ensure navigational safety and environmental compliance. The harbor's inlet pipes, installed in 2015 as part of a comprehensive port expansion project, extended roughly 200 meters into the bay and required quarterly inspections to check for structural integrity and marine growth accumulation. Naval officer Tomás Vieira, a 29-year-old marine engineer from Beira, had been assigned to the Maputo Naval Base 8 months earlier following his graduation from the Portuguese Naval Academy. His specialization in underwater infrastructure assessment made him particularly valuable for the technical diving operations required in the busy harbor environment. Vieira had completed over 150 professional dives during his naval career, with most of his experience gained in the relatively calm waters off Mozambique's central coast. His diving partner for the June inspection was Petty Officer Ricardo Machado, a 35-year-old veteran diver with 12 years of experience in harbor operations. Machado had conducted hundreds of inspections in Maputo Bay and was familiar with the local marine life patterns, including the occasional presence of bull sharks that sometimes ventured into the harbor area, following schools of fish or seeking fresher water mixing zones. The inspection dive was scheduled for early morning to take advantage of optimal visibility conditions and minimal commercial shipping traffic. Water conditions appeared ideal, with calm surface conditions and water temperature around 22 degrees Celsius. The target inspection area was located near the main inlet pipe junction, approximately 8 meters below the surface, where fresh water from the Maputo River mixed with salt water from the Indian Ocean. Vieira entered the water first, conducting standard pre-dive safety checks before descending toward the pipe system. Recent river discharge reduced the water clarity, creating a silty environment that limited visibility to approximately 3 meters. This condition was not unusual for harbor inspections, and both divers were equipped with high-powered underwater lights to compensate for the murky conditions. The inlet pipe system consisted of multiple concrete tubes measuring 2.5 meters in diameter. designed to channel water flow and prevent sediment accumulation in the harbor's main shipping channels. Vieira began systematically inspecting the pipe exteriors, checking for cracks, marine growth, and structural integrity issues that could compromise the system's effectiveness. Approximately 15 minutes into the dive, while Vieira was examining a junction point between two major pipes, a large bull shark emerged from the murky current with startling speed. Bull sharks, known for their tolerance of fresh and salt water, are among the few species that regularly venture into river systems and harbor areas. This specimen, estimated to be approximately 3.2 meters long, was likely attracted by the electrical signatures generated by the diving equipment or the vibrations from nearby port operations. The attack was swift and devastating. The bull shark struck Vieira from his right side, its powerful jaws clamping down on his torso just below the rib cage. The impact was so forceful that it knocked his breathing regulator from his mouth and sent his underwater light spinning into the murky water. The shark's teeth penetrated through his wetsuit and into the muscle tissue, crushing his lowest rib and causing immediate internal bleeding. Machado, positioned approximately 4 meters away and slightly above Vieira's location, witnessed the attack through the murky water. He immediately activated his emergency signaling device and began swimming toward his partner, despite the obvious danger posed by the aggressive shark. The bull shark maintained its grip on Vieira for several seconds, thrashing its head from side to side in typical predatory behavior. Vieira remained conscious throughout the attack, his naval training helping him maintain some level of composure, despite the excruciating pain and the realization that he was being held underwater by a large predator. He managed to retrieve his backup regulator and began breathing again, though each breath sent sharp pain through his damaged ribcage. The shark released its grip after approximately 10 seconds, possibly deterred by the unfamiliar taste of neoprene wetsuit material or confused by the artificial nature of the diving equipment. It swam away into the murky current as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Vieira floating near the inlet pipes with severe injuries but still conscious and breathing. Machado reached his partner within seconds of the shark's departure and immediately began emergency ascent procedures. He secured a lifting harness around Vieira's chest, carefully avoiding the injured area, and activated an emergency surface marker buoy to signal the support boat crew above. The ascent took nearly 3 minutes due to the need to avoid decompression sickness while managing a serious trauma case. When the two divers broke the surface support personnel had already been alerted by Machado's emergency signal and were prepared with medical equipment. Vieira was conscious but showing signs of shock and significant blood loss. The support crew immediately applied compression bandages to the wound area and administered oxygen while preparing for immediate evacuation to a hospital. The injured officer was transported to shore within 8 minutes of surfacing, where an ambulance crew was waiting to provide advanced medical care. Vieira underwent emergency surgery to repair internal bleeding and address the damaged rib, but made a full recovery over the following 3 months. The attack left him with permanent scarring and occasional respiratory issues, but he was able to return to active duty in a non-diving capacity. The incident prompted a comprehensive review of diving safety protocols for harbor operations, including mandatory shark deterrent devices for all underwater inspections and revised buddy system procedures for murky water conditions. Vieira's survival was attributed to his naval training, the quick response of his diving partner, and the fact that bull sharks, unlike some other large predatory species, typically do not engage in prolonged attacks on unfamiliar prey items. Raglan, New Zealand, November 8, 2020. The west coast of New Zealand's North Island had long been renowned among surfers worldwide for its powerful swells and consistent wave conditions, particularly around the small town of Raglan. Located approximately 48 kilometers southwest of Hamilton, Raglan sits at the mouth of the Whangaroa Harbor, where the Tasman Sea creates some of the most challenging and rewarding surf breaks in the Southern Hemisphere. Hannah Reid, a 26-year-old professional surfer from Auckland, had competed on the New Zealand surfing circuit for 8 years and was considered one of the country's most promising female surfers. She had grown up surfing the beaches around Auckland. Still, she had developed a particular affinity for the challenging conditions at Raglan, where she often traveled to train during the Southern Hemisphere's spring and summer months. Her close friend and surfing partner, Mark Thornfield, was a 28-year-old surf photographer who had been documenting New Zealand's surfing culture for various international magazines. Mark grew up in Raglan and knew intimately about the local surf breaks. including their seasonal variations and potential hazards. The two had been surfing together regularly for 3 years and had developed the kind of partnership common among experienced surfers who prioritize safety while pushing their limits. On the morning of November 8th, weather conditions were optimal for surfing at the breakwater. A low-pressure system moving across the Tasman Sea had generated consistent 2.5-meter swells, with offshore winds creating clean, well-formed waves. The water temperature was approximately 16 degrees Celsius, requiring full wetsuits but still comfortable for extended sessions. Hannah and Mark arrived at the breakwater around 7:30 a.m., joining roughly a dozen other surfers who had come to take advantage of the excellent conditions. The surf community in Raglan was tight-knit, and most surfers knew each other by name and surfing ability. Local surf etiquette was strictly observed, with experienced surfers like Hannah and Mark typically given priority on the larger, more challenging waves. Hannah successfully caught several impressive waves during the first hour of the session, demonstrating the technical skill that had earned her recognition in national competitions. The waves were breaking cleanly along the breakwater's edge, providing long rides of up to 150 meters when conditions aligned perfectly. Mark positioned himself in the water with his waterproof camera equipment, capturing still images and video footage of the session. Around 8:45 a.m., Hannah spotted an exceptionally large wave approaching from the horizon. The wave appeared in the 3.5-meter range, significantly larger than the average surf that morning. She paddled into position approximately 50 meters seaward of the breakwater, timing her approach to catch the wave at its optimal breaking point. The wave was everything she had anticipated, providing a powerful, fast-breaking ride along the breakwater's rocky edge. Hannah executed several technical maneuvers during the ride, including a series of bottom turns and cutbacks, demonstrating her advanced skill level. The ride lasted nearly 30 seconds before the wave dissipated in the deeper water beyond the breakwater. As Hannah began paddling back toward the takeoff zone for another wave, she found herself in approximately 4 meters of water near the breakwater's submerged foundation. Local surfers knew this area as a transition zone, where deeper ocean water met the shallower reef structure, creating complex current patterns that could be challenging to navigate. The great white shark attack occurred without any warning or observable precursor behavior. The shark, estimated to be approximately 3.8 meters long, struck Hannah's lower left leg with tremendous force while lying prone on her surfboard. The impact was so powerful that it partially lifted Hannah and her surfboard out of the water before dragging them back down. The shark's initial bite encompassed most of Hannah's lower leg, with its serrated teeth causing immediate severe trauma to muscle, bone, and major blood vessels. The pain was so intense that Hannah's scream was audible to surfers over 100 meters away, immediately alerting the entire surf community to the emergency. Mark, photographing other surfers approximately 40 meters from Hannah's position, witnessed the attack and immediately began paddling toward her location. His intimate knowledge of the local waters allowed him to navigate the complex currents and reef structures more efficiently than other potential rescuers farther from the scene. The great white maintained its grip on Hannah's leg for approximately 8 seconds, during which time she remained conscious and attempted to strike the shark's head and gills with her fists. Her wetsuit provided minimal protection against the shark's teeth, but may have prevented even more severe tissue damage. The shark eventually released its grip, possibly due to the unfamiliar texture of the neoprene material, or confusion caused by Hannah's defensive actions. Mark reached Hannah's location within 90 seconds of the initial attack. He found her still conscious but in severe shock, with significant bleeding from multiple puncture wounds on her lower leg. Her surfboard leash had become entangled with debris from the attack, and Mark was forced to cut it free before beginning rescue procedures. Using techniques learned during surf life-saving training, Mark positioned Hannah on his surfboard and began paddling toward shore while applying direct pressure to her wounds. The distance to the beach was approximately 200 meters, but the combination of current, waves, and the need to manage a seriously injured person made the rescue extremely challenging. Other surfers in the area had recognized the emergency and began coordinating their rescue efforts. 2 experienced local surfers, James Patterson and Sarah Mitchell, created a human chain to help guide Mark and Hannah through the surf zone and onto the beach. Meanwhile, someone had called emergency services from the parking area. Hannah remained conscious throughout the rescue but showed signs of significant blood loss and shock. Mark applied a makeshift tourniquet using his wetsuit belt, which proved crucial in controlling the bleeding during the paddle to shore. The tourniquet likely prevented fatal blood loss during the critical minutes before professional medical care became available. Emergency medical personnel arrived at Raglan Beach within 12 minutes of the initial emergency call. Hannah was immediately treated for shock and blood loss before being transported by helicopter to a hospital in Hamilton. She underwent emergency surgery to repair damaged blood vessels and reconstruct torn muscle tissue. The attack left Hannah with permanent scarring and some loss of mobility in her left ankle, effectively ending her competitive surfing career. However, she made a remarkable recovery and eventually returned to recreational surfing, though she avoided the breakwater area where the attack occurred. The experience forged an even stronger friendship between her and Mark, who credited their years of surfing partnership for enabling the successful rescue. Nosy Be, Madagascar, September 3, 2017. The waters surrounding Madagascar's fourth-largest island, Nosy Be, contained some of the most diverse marine ecosystems in the western Indian Ocean. Located off the northwest coast of Madagascar, approximately 8 kilometers from the mainland, Nosy Be has developed into a significant marine research destination due to its unique position at the confluence of several major ocean currents. The island's volcanic origins created underwater topography that supported extensive coral reef systems, deep water channels, and complex current patterns that attracted marine life ranging from microscopic plankton to large pelagic predators. The Madagascar Marine Research Institute established a permanent research station on Nosy Be in 2010. The institute's work was crucial for understanding how climate change and human activity affected marine ecosystems throughout the western Indian Ocean region. It focuses primarily on studying the migration patterns and behavioral ecology of large marine predators in the Mozambique Channel. Dr. Rina Sokolov, a 31-year-old marine biologist from a university in Cape Town, arrived at the research station 6 weeks earlier to conduct her doctoral research on tiger shark feeding behavior and habitat preferences. Her research involved collecting tissue samples, tracking individual sharks using satellite tags, and documenting feeding incidents to understand better the species' ecological role in the regional marine ecosystem. Sokolov had completed her master's degree in marine biology at a university in Johannesburg, specializing in elasmobranch ecology, with particular emphasis on large predatory species. Her doctoral work represented a significant expansion of previous research, as tiger sharks in the Madagascar region had received relatively little scientific attention compared to populations in other parts of the world. The research protocol required Sokolov to work with local fishing communities to identify areas where tiger sharks were frequently observed, then conduct underwater surveys to collect behavioral data and biological samples. Her research had progressed successfully, with 12 individual tiger sharks tagged and tissue samples collected from 8 different animals over the previous month. September 3rd marked the beginning of what local fishermen called the big fish season, when larger predatory species typically moved closer to shore following seasonal migrations of prey fish. Sokolov had planned to conduct a survey dive near a sunken fishing vessel located approximately 2 kilometers northeast of Nosy Be's main harbor. The wreck, which had sunk during a storm in 2014, had become an artificial reef that attracted various marine species, including the tiger sharks that were the focus of her research. Her dive partner for the survey was Jean-Claude Marion, a 38-year-old French marine photographer who had been working with the research station for 2 years. Marion possessed extensive experience diving in Madagascar's waters and was familiar with the behavioral patterns of the region's marine life. He documented the research activities and provided safety support during Sokolov's data collection work. The dive site was 18 meters of water, with the sunken fishing vessel resting on a sandy bottom surrounded by scattered coral formations. Water conditions were excellent, with visibility extending to approximately 15 meters and water temperature around 24 degrees Celsius. Over the 3 years since sinking, the wreck had become heavily colonized by marine growth, creating habitat for numerous fish species that formed the base of the local food web. Sokolov began her systematic survey of the wreck site at approximately 10:30 a.m., using standardized protocols to document fish species abundance and behavior patterns. Her equipment included underwater cameras, water quality sensors, and sample collection containers for gathering tissue specimens from any sharks encountered during the dive. The first indication of tiger shark presence came approximately 20 minutes into the dive, when Sokolov observed characteristic bite marks on the wreck's metal hull. Tiger sharks are known for their investigative behavior, often biting unfamiliar objects to determine their potential as food sources. The bite marks appeared fresh, suggesting recent shark activity in the immediate area. Marion positioned himself approximately 8 meters from Sokolov's location. maintaining visual contact while photographing the wreck site and surrounding marine life. His experience had taught him to remain alert for changes in fish behavior that might indicate the presence of large predators. Still, the abundant marine life around the wreck showed no signs of disturbance. The tiger shark appeared behind a large section of the wreck's superstructure, approaching Sokolov from her blind side. At the same time, she was focused on collecting a tissue sample from a smaller fish species. The shark, estimated to be approximately 3.6 meters in length, demonstrated the species' investigative behavior by approaching directly and deliberately, rather than exhibiting the more cautious behavior typical of many other large shark species. The attack occurred when Sokolov was positioned near the wreck's stern, collecting samples from a school of reef fish feeding on marine growth attached to the metal hull. The tiger shark struck her right thigh with tremendous force, its powerful jaws penetrating through her wetsuit and into the underlying muscle tissue. The bite encompassed a significant portion of her upper leg, with the shark's serrated teeth causing immediate severe trauma. The pain was instantaneous and overwhelming, but Sokolov's research experience with large marine predators had prepared her mentally for the possibility of such an encounter. She remained conscious and attempted to maintain her breathing rhythm while assessing the severity of her injuries. The shark maintained its grip for approximately 6 seconds before releasing and swimming away from the wreck site. Marian observed the attack from his position and immediately began swimming towards Sokolov, while activating his emergency surface marker buoy to signal the research vessel above. The distance between them required nearly 30 seconds to traverse, during which time Sokolov managed to maintain her position near the wreck while applying direct pressure to her wounds. Blood loss was significant but not immediately life-threatening, though Sokolov recognized that she needed to reach the surface quickly to receive medical attention. Marian reached her location and immediately began emergency ascent procedures, supporting her during the controlled ascent while monitoring for signs of decompression sickness or shock. The research vessel crew had been monitoring the dive activities and responded immediately to Marian's emergency signal. They prepared medical equipment and established radio contact with the nearest medical facility on Madagascar's mainland. The ascent took approximately 4 minutes, with Marian carefully managing the ascent rate to prevent additional complications. Upon reaching the surface, Sokolov was conscious but showing early signs of shock from blood loss and trauma. The research vessel crew immediately applied advanced first aid, including pressure bandages and intravenous fluids, while maintaining radio contact with medical personnel on shore. The vessel's high-speed capabilities allowed it to reach the mainland port within 45 minutes. Emergency medical treatment at the regional hospital included surgery to repair damaged muscle tissue and blood vessels, followed by several days of observation for infection and complications. Sokolov made a complete physical recovery. Though she retained permanent scarring from the attack, her research continued after a 3-month recovery period, with enhanced safety protocols and modified diving procedures that reflected lessons learned from the attack experience. The incident became part of her doctoral dissertation, providing unique first-hand insight into tiger shark behavior and attack patterns that contributed significantly to the scientific understanding of these marine predators. Tofino, British Columbia, Canada, July 19, 2016. The coastal waters off Vancouver Island's west coast represent one of Canada's most pristine and biologically diverse marine environments. Tofino, a small district municipality located on Clayoquot Sound, has become internationally recognized for its old-growth temperate rainforests and complex marine ecosystems that support everything from microscopic phytoplankton to massive orcas. Dr. Elena Vasilyeva, a 34-year-old marine mammal specialist from a university in British Columbia, had researched the Tofino area for 3 summers, focusing on orcapod social structures and communication patterns. Her work involved long-term observation of resident orca populations, using hydrophones to record vocalizations and kayak-based surveys to document behavioral patterns and pod compositions. Vasilyeva had immigrated to Canada from Russia 12 years earlier, bringing extensive experience in Arctic marine mammal research that proved valuable for understanding the complex predator-prey relationships in British Columbia's coastal waters. Her doctoral work had focused on beluga whale communication in Hudson Bay. Still, her postdoctoral research had expanded to include orcas, representing some of Earth's most cognitively advanced marine mammals. The morning of July 19th offered ideal conditions for marine mammal observation, with calm seas, minimal wind, and excellent visibility extending several kilometers from shore. Water temperature was approximately 12 degrees Celsius, typical for the region during summer months. though still requiring appropriate cold water protection gear for extended exposure. Vasilyeva had launched her sea kayak from Tofino's main harbor at 6:30 a.m., planning to conduct a solo survey of an area approximately 4 kilometers offshore, where hydrophone recordings had detected unusual orca vocalizations during the previous week. Solo research kayaking was standard practice for experienced marine biologists, as small single-person craft created minimal disturbance to marine mammals while providing excellent observation platforms. Her research equipment included waterproof recording devices, a high-powered telephoto camera, GPS tracking equipment, and emergency communication gear. The kayak was a specialized research vessel designed for extended offshore work, with multiple waterproof compartments and enhanced stability characteristics suitable for scientific observation activities. The target research area was near a submarine canyon where upwelling currents brought nutrient-rich deep water toward the surface, creating feeding opportunities and attracting various marine species. Resident orcapods were known to frequent the area during summer, following salmon runs that utilized the canyon's unique current patterns. Vasilyeva reached the research area around 7:45 a.m. and began deploying her hydrophone equipment to record underwater vocalizations. The morning's initial recordings revealed typical feeding-related communications from what appeared to be a small orca pod, possibly consisting of 4-6 individuals based on the variety of distinct vocal signatures detected. At approximately 8:20 a.m., she observed the first visual confirmation of orca presence, when a large male breached the surface roughly 200 meters from her kayak. The animal appeared to be an adult male, identifiable by its distinctive 1.8-meter dorsal fin and robust body size, which indicated a length of approximately 8 meters. The breach was spectacular, with the entire body clearing the water surface before crashing back down in an explosion of spray. Vasilyeva immediately began photographing and recording the encounter, recognizing that such close-range observations were relatively rare and scientifically valuable. Orcas in the region were generally tolerant of small watercraft, provided they maintained respectful distances and avoided disruptive behavior that might interfere with feeding or social activities. The situation changed dramatically when the large male orca surfaced again, much closer to her kayak position. Instead of the typical investigative approach that characterized most orca encounters with small boats, this animal displayed aggressive posturing behavior that Vasilyeva had never observed during her 3 years of research in the area. Without warning, the orca lunged directly toward her kayak with tremendous speed and force. The impact occurred so quickly that Vasilyeva had no opportunity to paddle away or otherwise avoid the encounter. The orca's massive head struck the kayak's hull with enough force to lift the entire vessel out of the water before flipping it completely over. Vasilyeva found herself suddenly immersed in the frigid Pacific Ocean, her research equipment scattered and her kayak floating upside down several meters away. The shock of the cold water was immediately overwhelming, but her years of cold water research experience helped her maintain composure, despite the terrifying circumstances. The orca remained in the immediate area, circling her position with behavior that seemed simultaneously aggressive and investigative. The animal approached within 2 meters of her floating position, its massive dorsal fin cutting through the water like a dark blade. At one point, the orca nudged her with its rostrum, the contact surprisingly gentle given the violence of the initial encounter. Vasilyeva found herself unable to call for help while underwater, instead focusing on remaining calm and avoiding movements that might further provoke the agitated animal. Her survival training emphasized the importance of not appearing threatening to large marine mammals, though she had never anticipated applying such knowledge during an actual aggressive encounter. The encounter lasted approximately 8 minutes, during which the orca continued to circle and occasionally make physical contact. The animal's behavior suggested curiosity rather than predatory intent, but the size difference meant that even gentle investigation posed significant danger to the human researcher floating helplessly in the water. Eventually, the orca's interest appeared to wane, and it began moving away from Vasilyeva's position. She waited until the animal was departing before attempting to swim toward her overturned kayak. The combination of cold water, heavy research equipment, and shock made swimming extremely difficult, but she managed to reach the kayak and begin attempts to right it. Her research team, monitoring her progress via GPS tracking, had detected the unusual stationary position and dispatched a rescue boat when she failed to respond to radio communications. The rescue vessel reached her location approximately 15 minutes after the initial encounter, finding her hypothermic but conscious while clinging to her damaged kayak. Emergency medical treatment focused on hypothermia and shock, with Vasilyeva requiring several hours of warming therapy before her core body temperature returned to normal levels. She experienced no lasting physical injuries from the encounter, though the psychological impact was significant and required counseling to process. The incident served as a powerful reminder that even the most experienced researchers must respect the unpredictable nature of wild marine mammals, regardless of their typical behavioral patterns or apparent tolerance of human presence.